My name is Rick Toren. I'm a professor at Miami Business School, and this is my story. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is a steel town. My father was a dentist and took care of the employees at the Bethlehem steel plant, which was 33,000 of the 40,000 people were involved in steel in Bethlehem.
I ended up in pre-med because I wanted to be a doctor. So my brother, who's a doctor, convinced me that I don't have the patience to go through that long drive to become a doctor. And I had always had side jobs as I grew up. I started my own lawn business when I was in high school. I had a business at Penn State where I went to undergraduate school, where I was having pinball machines in every fraternity. I started a check cashing agency in the student union building because students had no place to go to get checks cashed other than the banks, and they would charge them a fee. So I always had to have activity to do things that are now considered entrepreneurial, but there was no such word back in 1968 called entrepreneurship. I was in graduate school in Chicago, and my brother, who's the doctor, was at the National Institute of Health, working for a scientist who had developed injection technology for the military with the antidote to nerve gas. And they got a huge contract, and they had no business people. So my brother said, well, my brother's in business school, why don't you hire him to start this business and fulfill this contract with the US government to create these or manufacture these syringes. So I left school to take this job because it sounded very compelling and really cool. While I was doing that, a couple of years later, my daughter ends up with a bee sting allergy. Go to the doctor with her, and they have a kit they give the patients to say, carry this kit so if you ever get stung by a bee, you open it up, there's an empty syringe in there, a vial, and a swab. All you have to do is swab your leg, take the syringe, put it in the vial, take out the drug, inject it, but make sure you're not in the vein. And I thought, oh my God, how will she ever do that? Is she's panicked now that she got stung and her throat's starting to close up, her lips are swollen. So I thought, well, why can't we take the syringe we have for the nerve gas antidote that troops use and put epinephrine in it, which is the antidote to bee stings. That took 6 years because he had to change it from stainless steel to glass, had to be sterilized, had to go through the FDA. Took a long time. And when we started selling it, at the time, we looked at the data. There were only 1,500 anaphylactic reactions reported to the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. So the guy who started the company, Dr. Sarnoff was his name, said, now that we've done all this, we're not going to sell very many of these. Why don't we find a company who wants it? So we sold the EpiPen in 1975 to a drug company who then sold it to another one that sold it to another one that became what's now Mylan Labs, who sells it for $600. And it costs $11 to fully amortize all the work, the molds, the FDA approval. The whole thing is $11. I look at teaching a whole lot differently than traditional teachers. I'm not there to lecture. I'm there for them to absorb and learn. So my style of teaching is a whole lot different than I'm sure everybody else's. I start out by thinking I'd like every student to have a good experience and learn what entrepreneurship is. And I break them into teams. There are 8 teams with 5 students on a team. And the last thing they do before the final exam is to create a new company from scratch. They make up a product. Doesn't have to be real, doesn't have to work, but they have to kind of live the product and then present that to the rest of the students who grade them. I don't grade them. Success to me is having them present comfortably, successfully, and convince all of us that what they have is really a good company. That's my goal.